All right, another day, another story on 3i Atlas, guys. Look, this is the story. This is the one. What is this thing? It's amazing how some people still don't even know what it is. It's funny because you'll still... I had a conversation just the other day, and I said, hey, have you heard about 3i Atlas? And they laughed and was like, what's that now? And it's like, well, I don't know what it is, but it's something that's headed towards this planet, and scientists and other people don't really know what it is yet. But it's still not that big of a story here yet outside of certain communities. It's starting to get bigger and bigger, and more conversation is being had about it. Now, Avi Loeb is the guy. He's been talking about it for quite a bit. We covered it the other day, and a lot of the stories when we cover 3i Atlas has Avi Loeb attached to it. He is the last thing that we did on this channel, I think, was on Friday, where we talked about that Avi Loeb says there's a 4 out of 10 chance, 40%, which is a big percentage, that it is non-human. Well, he was on Joe Rogan now, and he said a lot of different things on Rogan's show, but in the topic of 3i Atlas, he talked about the size of it and other things, and this is just a clip from that show and the things they talked about, and props to Red Panda Koala for clipping this out.
In order to distract attention from the Epstein files.
Is that what people are saying?
Yeah, and I said, look, this object is the size of Manhattan Island. It's at 4.5 times the Earth-Sun separation. If I was able to put it out there, I would be more powerful than the Pope. And because we're talking about a giant object that you can see from any place on Earth. You can buy online a telescope that will allow you, 0.5 meter in size, that will allow you to see it. It's out there. It cannot be faked.
Well, those people are fools. You can't listen to those people.
I don't listen to those. I don't listen to many people,
Initially, a lot of people were dismissing your concerns, and they were saying that this object is nothing but a comet, and it's very normal. But then as it got closer and as we got more data, it seems like you're correct.
Well,
this is a very unusual object.
There is something really important to recognize here, that usually when you deal with scientific matters, they have very little impact on the future of humanity. Very little. If the neutrino has a little bit of a mass, it doesn't really matter. When we discovered the Higgs boson, the biggest impact was to confirm some idea we had back in the 60s. And, obviously that affected, those people who got the Nobel Prize. But most of us continued as if nothing happened. However, here, if we ever encounter alien technology, everything will change. It will affect the financial markets. It will affect politics in a major way. So my point is simple. This is different than other scientific matters, and the intelligence agencies know very well that events with very small probability have to be considered seriously because they could have major implications.
Okay, so we'll play a little bit more of that video in just a bit, but there's quite a few things there that Avi Loeb says. Now, the first thing is, as Rogan mentions, that, look, Avi Loeb's been out there talking about this thing for a while. And yes, a lot of people said, well, you're the alien guy. You're the guy that says you found materials and you have an agenda. You're on all the UFO podcasts and you're doing that. So clearly you're going to say that because that's what you do. But then and again, as Rogan mentioned, there's more and more people saying, well, wait, this thing is moving differently. It's moving faster. It's maneuvering. It's doing these things. Like, what is it? It's not necessarily admitting and saying that it is alien life, but from what he is saying, the size of this thing, it's the size of Manhattan, so you can see it. It's not the fact that people thought that he was making up to avert attention because of the Epstein files or whatever else is ludicrous. In the same way that when we were talking about disclosure, and these people, well, no, I don't believe any of this UFO stuff. I saw people say this on my other channel. I don't believe any of that UFO stuff. That's just a distraction. The government wants you to look somewhere else. They don't even cover it. The news doesn't even cover it. They're not even talking. The government doesn't want most of the government that you're talking about. They don't even want you to know about this. Talk about this stuff. So that's what people just say. So, and he even says, this is the size of Manhattan. I'm gonna hide. I'm gonna try to. You can look at it. You can see it. It's becoming more of a conversation. Like, what is this thing in general? Like, what could it be? And as it gets closer and closer, I think Halloween, which is right around the corner here, we should be able to get more of a view of it. Avi Loeb is getting more and more coverage as he is going out and talking. And this is the thing, that this is not just for this particular thing. This is a lot of stuff that you see for UFO disclosure and other things too, or people talking about UFOs. It always seems to be the same voice. We do need other scientists. I think Avi Loeb's obviously been in this since the beginning. He's been talking about this. He's been studying this, and he should be talking about it. But you should get other scientists talking about it too, if and when it gets closer and closer and closer, and they can actually get a feel of what this is. I also want to see if his percentage changes, as where we said it was before, is 40% beforehand. What is it now? So let's watch a little bit more of this particular clip here, and we'll talk about it.
Just think about October 7th. The Israeli intelligence agencies had a theory that the Hamas will do nothing. And they got data that indicated something is going on out there. But they dismissed it because of their theory. Now, because as a result of their mistake, which was clearly a blunder, a lot of people died on both sides. For that, this could have been avoided if they were to consider a black swan event, an event that you put a small probability for it happening, but you look at anomalies in the data and say, look, the implications are so huge, we have to consider it. And, this idea was already considered by the philosopher mathematician Blaise Pascal. He talked about God. And he said, look, of course, you might think that God doesn't exist. The probability for that is small, but the implications, if God exists, the implications are so huge that we have to discuss it. That was the argument, Pascal's wager. And the intelligence agencies know that. Believe me, the Israeli intelligence agencies will not make that mistake again. Now, here comes an object from outside the solar system, and it shows anomalies. The scientists would say we should be as careful as possible at talking about anything other than a rock. Now, they say that when they know that humanity launched a lot of space junk, a lot of technological objects to space. And we also know that there are 100 billion stars like the sun in the Milky Way galaxy alone. Most of them formed billions of years before the sun. And there are billions of Earth-Sun analogs. Now, we all believe that we came out of a soup of chemicals. That's the scientific narrative of how human intelligence came on this earth.
Again, another way to be covering his ass too in this and saying, look, I've been telling you guys this. You have to look at the possibility of it. You can't ignore it. You got to pay attention to it. And I don't know. I haven't watched the full interview yet, but I'm curious if Joe asked him, who is Avi Loeb been meeting with in the government about this stuff? Are they taking it serious? Are they looking into this in general? Or is it just him out there who's saying this? Who's he been meeting with? Who's he been talking to inside the government? Because you would assume, well, first of all, we reported on this not too long ago. NASA got it wrong about the coordinates. They were a little off, I think. And so this is concerning. Unless there's people who might know more than Avi Loeb and say, look, we know what this is. This is nothing to be concerned about. Or they are concerned about it. We're just not going to hear about it. But the idea of what he was saying there and the idea of you've got to put all possibilities. I just wish we were that kind of world where we could collectively, we're too concerned with what's happening here, and we don't look outside of. We can't even fathom it. The conversations I have with people that I respect a lot. I mean, I had a conversation with my co-host on Monday, and it's it's that same kind of smirky face, and I love him. He's one of my good friends, but it's the same kind of smirky face that people do when this topic that is, whatever, because they can't fathom it. They can't fathom it, and you got to ask the what ifs. And what could be, should be. And this is the thing that Avi Loeb is saying in this particular clip, is that there are so many different options of what could happen. And he uses the comparison of if you have these things that are set up and people are presenting it to you, you got to look at and weigh it all out. And I agree. He talked a little bit more about 3i Atlas with Rogan. And here's the next clip about the exact the chance of it aligning with the check this out.
2 weeks ago, I realized the arrival direction of 3i Atlas was within 9 degrees of the wow signal that was detected in 1977, which was an enigmatic, powerful radio signal that definitely came from outside of this Earth. We don't know from where. It was coming from a source that was approaching the sun. And the chance of it aligning with the arrival direction of 3i Atlas is 0.6%. And I just said, well, that's interesting, because 3i Atlas was at a distance of 3 light days from the Earth at that time, and you just need about the output of a nuclear reactor on Earth, a gigawatt or so, to produce such a radio signal.
Again, these facts and these things, scientifically, the way that he's looking at it. Like we had Avi Loeb on the show, I don't know how many months ago it was, maybe a year ago, I don't even remember. But nonetheless, when I was talking to him, I realized very fast that and I've seen it on other shows since, and I've mentioned it, he doesn't do the opinion stuff. And he says it many times over. He pays attention to the science and the numbers. And clearly in that clip, he talks about the idea of, look, this signal that was out there, that we don't know who sent it. It was out there. It's out there. And this thing it's in correlation with 3i Atlas. And it's moving. This whole thing's an anomaly, and it's very different. And this has now been the Galileo Project's thing. This is what they study. This is what they're looking into. And they are researching it. And they seem to be like the premier voice in doing it. And it's interesting that we don't have more people out there at least talking about it. And it's weird, though, too, because I remember just being a kid, like when there was some kind of, whether it's a comet or whatever it might be, there was like nonstop coverage of this type of thing. And there's nothing really on this outside of, again, Avi Loeb talking about a few other people. But this is a good start, the fact that Rogan's talking to him about it. But why not more research into this? Why not more conversation about it? Well, he also talks about that with Rogan. Yeah, check this.
Microbes came to Earth very early, therefore they must be everywhere. So let's define our highest priority, searching for microbes on other houses in our cosmic street. And I say, good, you can do that from the vantage point of your home. You can look through the window and search for microbes in your neighbors' yards. But you would need to put $10 billion to develop a big enough instrument that would be able to detect the chemical fingerprints of microbes, on exoplanets. And think about the possibility that there is a resident in one of those houses. That resident might show up in your front door at some point, or you might see an object that arrives to your backyard or your mailbox from that resident.
A black swan event.
A black swan event. Or you might see some construction project from a distance. That might be easier to detect than microbes. So we should hedge our bets. We should invest billions of dollars on both fronts. At the moment, the scientific community is willing to allocate more than $10 billion to searching for microbes, but no recommendation is made to allocate any federal funding to the search for intelligence. And I say that is an oversight.
I mean, of course it's an oversight. I mean, that's what we've been discussing. And here's the other question, right? The other question is it an oversight, or is it going into this whole reason why we started this channel and that other people have started their channels? Other people have talked about it too. Is it the fact that there is other things and other programs that we just don't know about, that they are working on this and we just don't know about it, that there are outside programs and this allocation to these funds that we don't know where it's going to? We know exactly where it's going to. It's going to these outside kind of secret programs. So yes, officially it is an oversight, but it seems like there are things that are being worked upon outside of our knowledge that maybe they know way more. So it just depends on, I guess, what you believe. But overall, the answer is yes. They should have programs for this to see, because we all agree, whether you believe in whatever is out there or not, that we are. I say this to my friend Sam, who we on my other channel we just watched Interstellar and other things too. And I said, you guys, and I say this to my wife too. I said, we're floating in space right now. right now, while you're watching this, we are floating in space. And we don't really pay attention to that because of all the stuff and all the things in our social media and all the shit that we do. We don't really pay attention to the fact that we are literally a speck floating around in a galaxy, infinite space. And what the hell else is out there? How do we expand and evolve as human beings, as species? Do we do that by becoming billionaires and keeping it and saving it to the next generation and next generation, but not sharing it to anywhere else? Like he's saying, billions of dollars could go into funding programs, doing that, expanding, looking for life. The amount of resources that we have on this planet, and there's no way this happens. I'm just saying, if we decided all together, collectively, let's put these funds together and figure out a way to investigate as a planet. If human beings in this fantasy world, that if one day human beings all decided together, let's stop killing each other. Let's actually work together and figure out what the hell else is out there. Let's work together. That's what intelligent, things would do. In the ultimate aspect, yes, we might read a lot of books. We might be able to figure out certain things in quantum physics and things like that. But ultimately, we're not smart, because smart would be let's all line up together and figure out what the hell else is out there. But we don't. We just don't do that. And we never will. But he talks about that, and as far as the programs go, the last thing I'll bring up here is when he mentioned when he went out and he visited, and he was out talking to the government, and he spoke to both Arrow and he spoke to Eric Davis at the same time, and the conflicting things that he heard. So check this clip out.
Pay attention at all to all this UAP disclosure discussion and the discussion that there's some secret back engineering programs?
So a day after I was visiting Arrow, the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office at the Pentagon, I sit in Congress. I gave a briefing about the Galileo project, and next to me is Eric Davis, and he says, when I worked in government, I became aware of the fact that the U.S. government has materials in its possession that it may have given to corporations like Lockheed Martin or others of crash sites of spacecraft from outside of this Earth, and including biological material. So on the one hand, I hear the day before that there is really nothing because the Arrow people said that they have access to all the information within government and they haven't found anything. And then a day later, I hear Eric Davis saying what he said. And the question is, who should I believe? And my point is, I believe evidence. So I don't believe stories because, if there is a car accident, different people give you different accounts of what really happened. That's why FIFA is using cameras to monitor soccer games. They don't go and ask the players or the audience whether there was a goal in a controversial case, and they just use data. And so that is the scientific method.
I mean, so he basically says what I said earlier. He doesn't listen to stories. It's like, maybe somebody might have a fascinating story. Somebody might have an absolutely incredible story, but who do I believe? And I don't think he's wrong. I think that's how we feel about all of us, right? Because I think the majority of us don't believe a word out of Sean Kirkpatrick's mouth. I mean, that guy, he just looks like he's telling fibs. I mean, even if he's just like, hey, Sean, where's the ketchup? I don't have the ketchup. You sure you don't have the ketchup? No ketchup. Hey, Sean, I need the ketchup. I don't have the ketchup. There's no ketchup. I never had ketchup. I wouldn't know where the ketchup was. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. Sean's full of shit. But then again, I don't know Eric Davis. I know his stories are pretty fascinating. I know the fact that he's pretty adamant about it, but I also know he's not testifying. I know that he'll talk about it in front of a briefing, but he's not testifying. Does he want to? I don't know. But it is interesting to hear Avi Loeb talk about it. It's like, who do I listen to? One day I hear we haven't found anything. And then the next day I hear we have some stuff. Now, it all depends on, again, if you're in this community, you're paying attention. Most of us don't believe Arrow, or at least that faction of Arrow. And Arrow is fairly worthless for that particular subject. You can't believe anything that they're put there for a purpose. But I understand the sentiment and I understand what he's saying. But I really wonder what's going to happen with this 3i Atlas stuff. And I wonder what they're going to say with Avi Loeb with this 3i Atlas. I mean, it's, as I said, if nothing happens, like Avi, it was a comment. Like, well, I said, 40% of the data showed it was one thing and it was moving differently, and I stick by that. That's what the science said. Turns out it is something. He's going to be the guy that they talk about for a very long time. But I don't know. What do you guys make of this? What do you make of all of it? What do you think about 3i Atlas? What do you think about the funding that they potentially could do? You think Arrow being fibbers? Put your thoughts in there. Let me know. Thanks for joining me on the show here today. I appreciate it. We'll see you on the flip side.